Although Sly 1 was a bit overshadowed by the other big two platformers released around the same time, Sly was very well received by those who played it. With its fantastic sense of style, fluid gameplay, and intriguing characters, it was exciting to see where its sequel would take it, and holy crap, it would not disappoint. For anyone familiar with the Sly franchise, it's no secret that many consider Sly 2 Band of Thieves to be the best in the series, and for me personally, it is one of my favourite PS2 games of all time. Now let's dive into what makes Sly 2 so great, and damn anyone who disagrees with me.
Juice! Who's got the juice?
Sly 2 Band of Thieves was released on the PlayStation 2 in 2004. Now this is a bit of a tangent, but for the longest time I thought the game was called Sly 2 A Band of Thieves. I think my child brain interpreted the little Sly logo as being an A. I meant to say A. Am I stupid? In 2010 it was re-released as part of the HD collection on the PS3 and Vita, which was developed by Sanzaru Games, who did a baby up job. I meant to say bang up, not baby up. The script is going so well. Which was developed by Sanzaru Games, who did a bang up job. This is the version we will be playing through in this retrospective, for the reason I explained in my Sly 1 video. For a short summary as to why, it involved pink duct tape. Right from the opening scene, we can immediately see the change of focus for this entry. Instead of Sly commencing the break-in on his own, he is accompanied by two companions. Sly is lowered down by a rope into the Museum of Natural History in Cairo, Egypt. Once again, the title screen is integrated into the gameplay. Sly will keep circling the room until you press start. Bentley will contact us through the binocucom, and there is a significant improvement to the character interactions. It's less gamey sounding, for lack of a better word. Sly and Bentley talk more like a couple of good friends, rather than co-workers like in the opening of the first game.
This is Peking Duck. I hear you, Blizzard.
No, Sly, I'm the wizard, and you're sitting duck.
I read you loud and clear, Lizard.
No, I'm... Forget it, you're not taking this seriously.
Sly's movement has changed somewhat. Instead of running when holding the analog stick forward, Sly will not break out into a sprint, but instead will lightly sneak forward. In order to sprint, you must hold down the R1 button. This change in control scheme works really well with the increased emphasis on stealth. Jumping up onto the balcony, we let Bentley in, who nervously hacks into the museum's security, opening the way for us to continue through the premises. We make it to the exterior, where we get to use the rail run skill learned from the Thieves recruiters. We just have to use the circle button, the do everything button. Sly has retained all of his skills from the last game. Well, the most useful ones anyway. There is no slow motion or hack bombs, but honestly you don't miss them. The levels aren't designed with them in mind anyway. Blocked by a barred door, we are met by the third and final member of the Cooper Gang.
Thunderflop!
The Murray. Murray is portrayed quite differently than that in the first game. In Sly 1 he desperately wants to be like Sly, but is extremely overzealous. Gaining some confidence, he is now the brawn of the operations, and complements both Sly and Bentley well. Why exactly are the Cooper Gang here? Well, they are here to steal the clockwork parts before the mechanical owl clockwork can be reconstructed. Sly enters the room where the parts should be stored, but it is then ambushed by Constable Neela and Inspector Carmelita Fox, who believes that the Cooper Gang stole the parts, but Neela isn't so sure, stating that it looks more like a Claw Gang job. With Neela distracting Carmelita, Sly and the gang make a break for it. The gang was able to avoid capture by Carmelita once they boarded the team van.
I'll find you, Cooper!
Clockwork. He was consumed with jealousy for the Cooper Gang's thieving reputation. Is it inappropriate to refer to him as a monster? No, not at all. What kind of person stays alive for hundreds of years with the express intention of wiping out a rival family's line? Imagine the hatred fueling that first decision to replace his mortal body with soulless machinery. Ultimately, it did the trick. Clockwork lived on. He caught up with Sly's parents and he wound up in an orphanage. It's there that he met his friends Bentley, the brains of the outfit, and Murray, the brawn. They turned out to be all the family he needed. 2 years ago, Sly thought he'd finished it. How naive to think that he could so easily put an end to that kind of hatred. And now Clockwork's back, in pieces sure, but the threat is real. Does the Claw Gang even realise what they've stolen? Sly doesn't know what's in his future, but he won't let it be a repeat of his past. The art style of the narrative cutscenes has changed. With bold outlines around the characters, they stand out from the lovely background art. The last game's style, while impressive, was a little muddled. This game's style is much cleaner. The animation is more consistent, with sticking to a moving comic book, but the characters are occasionally off-model. But it's difficult not to enjoy these scenes, which transition the game from one beautiful world to the next and further develop the plot. Like the first game, Sly 2 is divided into episodes. Instead of returning to the gang's hideout after each episode, we are brought back to this menu. It may be considered a step down from the previous installment, but this is more than compensated for by the incredible graphic design and iconic music. The music in Sly 2 is fantastic and sets the tone for the entire series, despite the fact that the soundtrack for Sly 1 is quite different from the soundtracks for 2 and 3. As you progress through the story, the track that plays during the episode select menu will change, with the addition of new instruments to the track. Peter McConnell composed the soundtrack for Sly 2 Band of Thieves. The tracks that play within the levels complement the look and feel of their environments and have some real bangers, with my personal favourite being the theme to the episode 1's main villain.
Show your bling and let me shine you.
Sly had to call in a few favours to get the goods on the Claw Gang's local operator, Dimitri, a sort of underworld celebrity, equally at home in high-class art circles and shady back-alley crimes. He was once a passionate young art student who worked hard to develop his own visionary style. Unfortunately, the art world wasn't quite ready for his kinetic aesthetic, so he gave them what they wanted and started forging old masterpieces, his way of punishing those with bad taste. Dimitri now runs a nightclub on the west side. The thumping music, colourful light shows and a hint of danger lure in chic young patrons from far and wide, and it's here, hidden somewhere, where we'll find the clockwork tail feathers. What Dimitri plans to do with these clockwork parts is unknown, but those plans end tonight.
Sly Cooper and the gang in Le Chateau Negre. Nar. Oh, you're right.
The first episode takes place in Sly's home turf, Paris. The structure of Sly 2 is quite a bit different than that of the first game. Each episode has its own hub world, but this time around the hub worlds are far more expansive. Instead of them merely being a means to enter linear levels, some missions will also take place within the hub world itself. It is a much more connected world. The exteriors on the outside actually match up with the interiors. For example, this here is the entrance to the second level of a building, and guess what? When you enter through the door, it actually takes you to the second level of the building. So instead of feeling like you're being teleported to a different area, you are scouting out an actual place within the world. This new approach to the level layouts also affects the structure of the missions, or jobs as they are called in this game. In Sly 1, the platforming levels were quite linear, with the ultimate goal of reaching the end and collecting a key. This is very different in Sly 2. Each episode has a set of jobs that all lead up to a heist to obtain the clockwork parts. This setup works wonders for making each mission feel important, as it is all building up to the final act of the episodes. When you finish a job, an awesome animation with the character signing off plays. I especially like the one for Sly. Unfortunately, there is no way to replay jobs. Now this has nothing to do with jobs, but in the pause menu, there are portraits of the main characters, and for some reason Carmelita's portrait is her beta design. I just thought it was strange that they didn't update it, because it's not like you never see the screen, like you constantly see it when you pause. I don't know. I thought it was weird that they left it. It seems like a mistake. Our first task is to gather some more information about Dimitri and his operations. To start a mission, you will need to get to the mission's start location via the hub world. The mission waypoints are displayed as beams in the sky when pressing the L3 button or looking through the binocular. As Sly, we break into the nightclub to take reconnaissance photos of Dimitri's operation. We sneak in through the wine cellar with the help of Murray, who is a lot more proficient at taking out the guards. Murray opens up some iron bars so we can jump through. We continue our way, avoiding some lasers, sneaking past the guards and crawling through the vents to reach the manufacturing room. Using the binocular, we can take photos. You have to make sure that the subject is in focus for it to count. You can zoom in and out using the analog stick to get a better shot. Just a warning to everyone, the camera controls are inverted.
Which was the style at the time?
You can change this in the settings, so it's all good. We snap a picture of the generator, Dimitri, and the clockwork tail feathers. It looks as though he has modified the tail feathers into printing plates. With their unique metal alloy, Dimitri is able to print an endless supply of counterfeit money. Sly returns to the safe house so he and the gang could formulate a plan. The safe house, also known as the hideout, is the base of operations for the Cooper gang. The location of it changes depending on the episode. There is a table where Bentley, Sly and Murray sit. A laptop next to Bentley gives us access to ThiefNet, where we can buy power-ups and sell loot or treasures. There are also various items around the safe house, often including some form of speaker to relay audio from the villain of the area.
I hear there's some raccoon dude giving us static. If you all spot this crackerbox, bam! Make him unhappy.
The safe house is marked with a big yellow S after pinging the waypoint when out in the hub world. The safe house also allows you to switch between the three characters. I love how they all have different reactions when you go to select them. Sly looks really confident, Murray is very eager, and Bentley looks very nervous. It's just another way that the game reinforces the characters' personalities. One of the issues when switching between characters for missions is that there is no indication in the safe house that tells you who still has a job to complete. The only way to check is to leave the safe house and ping the waypoints or look through the binocular. That also brings up another thing I don't like, and that is the fact that you have to be the correct character just to start a job. It would be better if you could just approach the mission start point as any character and the game would just switch them for you. I mean, they do it mid-mission, why couldn't it be done at the start? I guess the way it is does give you a reason to play the hub world other than Sly, but the hub worlds are more tailored to Sly's moveset, so it can be a bit cumbersome to get around as Bentley and Murray. They needed to add in more jump pads or something, because some places can be a real pain in the ass to reach. They both can shimmy along ledges though, with really cute animations, 10 out of 10. After evaluating the reconnaissance photos we took, Bentley realizes that he needs more information on Dimitri's operations before he can proceed with a solid plan for the gang to steal the tail feathers. Bentley decides that bugging Dimitri's office would be a perfect way to gather intel. Taking a forged painting that has a bug attached to it, we sneak our way into Dimitri's office, swapping it out with the real one. We will now be able to hear in on his conversations. By returning to the safe house with the original painting without taking damage, we can sell it on ThiefNet for a lot of coins. Next, we tail Dimitri, making sure not to be spotted by him or his guards. He eventually reaches a door and unlocks it by entering a code. With Sly watching, we are able to get the code to open the door to the nightclub's aqua pump. This is the first time we take control of Murray, and all we need to do is get to the water pump room and destroy it by throwing rats into it.
That's cold.
Destroying the water pump will force Dimitri to route water from the water tower that stands outside, which is an integral part of Bentley's plan. In between completing jobs, Bentley will construct a slideshow for the team, using the recon photos taken of the area. During these slideshows, information about the episode's villain is dished out, and also info about up-and-coming jobs. It's a great way to reinforce why we are doing each job, as well as make it feel like the information you are gathering is actually being used in planning of these heists. The gang pull off a few more jobs, such as disabling security around town and in the printing press room to avoid any complications during the heist. While exploring the rooftops, Sly encounters Constable Neela. She explains that she led him there, revealing that the slip of the tongue she gave Encaro was an intentional clue. Neela claimed that she was not as black and white as Inspector Fox, that she knew what a menace the clockwork parts were, and that she would need Sly's help to get them away from the Claw gang. We then have to follow Neela through the streets. Neela is way too easy to keep up with, and can sometimes cause it to glitch out a bit. She leads us to the back door of Dimitri's nightclub and gives Sly the key, claiming that she couldn't enter without a warrant, but that Sly's gang was not held to such standards. Using the key, Bentley nervously enters the nightclub. Using his bombs, we have to blow up the 4 pillars around the room to drop a disco ball in order to loosen the nightclub's peacock sign. A really cool aspect of this level is that you can actually see into Dimitri's office that looks over the dance floor. This design approach is used all over the game. Everything is connected.
In the great circle of life.
With all pillars destroyed, the ball crashes to the ground and the peacock sign becomes successfully loosened from its moorings. With all of the prep completed, the gang is ready to pull off Operation Thunderbeak. Heists are definitely the highlight of each episode. Everything we have been doing throughout the episode has built up to this. The gang will seamlessly swap between characters. While this does happen occasionally during other missions, it's not to the same extent as in heists. Because we are now able to play all 3 members of the gang, we get to see and play through every perspective of the mission. At Bentley, we head to the water tower and have Murray throw us up to it. There is a very easy puzzle to redirect the water from the fountain, which causes Dimitri to send out a repairman. While the repairman is making his way to the truck, as Sly we pickpocket the keys. Sly hands off the keys to Bentley and Murray, who drive the truck to the fountain. Climbing to the top of the peacock sign, Sly grabs the hook from the truck. Guards start attacking the truck, so we must fight them off before pulling down the peacock sign, smashing the fountain and creating a hole that leads directly into the printing press room.
God! So raccoons do this. Like totally bumming my house up and bringing me down. So very uncool. Why can't you let birds and bees be free, bro?
Dimitri is such a memorable villain. He's not really sinister in any way, and when you're lurking around his nightclub, you get the sense that he actually treats his henchmen quite well. The way he talks is unforgettable. English is not his first language, and he learned it by listening to music videos and mimicking their speech. And his theme music is just so good and plays throughout the nightclub. Dimitri not only uses his nightclub to cover up his forgery scheme, but additionally he has been using it to distribute illegal spice to the population.
You think you can swing the bat? Show your bling and let me shine.
I have no idea what you're saying. And your suit sucks.
Being the game's first boss, Dimitri isn't too difficult. He will fire a beam of something at you, and you avoid them by hiding behind pillars. His attack has a cooldown period, and this is when you take the opportunity to smack him.
Coming for you! Coming for you! We know what you're doing!
Just rinse and repeat until his health bar is depleted.
You take clockwork, fellas, and my counterfeit in operation. It's past tense.
I'm doing you a favor. What kind of thief prints money? There's no honor in that.
You... crackerbox!
The gang had done it. The clockwork tail feathers were theirs, and Dimitri's counterfeiting operation was ruined. Due to the untimely arrival of Carmelita, the escape got a little tricky. Angry at having just missed Sly, she took it out on Dimitri, shutting down the nightclub and throwing the frustrated forger behind bars. The gang headed out of town for a week in Monaco. Bentley wanted to try out his new card counting formula, and Sly figured the team had earned themselves a well-deserved break. Another clockwork part has surfaced in India, so the gang loaded up the van and zeroed in on their next target, a mysterious spice lord known as Rajan. A self-made man who grew up poor on the streets of Calcutta, he started his life of crime selling illegal spices in the black market, eventually growing his small outfit into a sizable operation and earning himself a seat in the prestigious Claw Gang. He's since crowned himself Lord of the Hills, and while he goes to great lengths to convince others of his royalty, it's mostly to convince himself. True to form, he's holding a lavish ball in his newly purchased ancestral palace. The reason? To show off his latest acquisition, the clockwork wings, the symbol of Sly's enemy. If you saw the wings silhouetted against the night sky, it was already too late for you, especially if your name was Cooper. Rajan believes displaying the wings will bring him prestige, and maybe they will, but they're also bringing the Cooper gang.
Sly Cooper and the gang in a starry-eyed encounter.
Our first mission is to conduct reconnaissance in the ballroom. Rajan has increased security and closed the drawbridge, so Sly is the only one who can enter the palace grounds at the moment. Sly's abilities are primarily focused on stealth and acrobatics, with some combat skills thrown in for good measure. Sly's main weapon is his family's cane, which he uses not only to attack enemies but also to traverse the environment, such as swinging from hooks and climbing up ice walls. He has mastered every skill detailed in the Thieves' Raccoonus, such as balancing on top of sharp points, rope and pole climbing, and wire running. He is the most agile of the group and the most enjoyable to control when exploring. The hub worlds are clearly designed around Sly's moveset, and these areas become a playground for you to leap and bound your way through. It's a lot of fun just to travel between mission points. We can enter the ballroom by climbing up the tree branches and entering through the balcony on the second floor. We photograph Rajan as well as the clockwork wings and an electric winch located above the wings. We also take advantage of the opportunity to photograph the guests. The rest of the Claw gang has arrived, as have undercover cops, the Contessa, Carmelita and Neela. With the recon completed, the gang must find a way to steal the wings without drawing attention to themselves in the ballroom. That means we have to devise a distraction, but before that we need to open the drawbridge and let the rest of the gang in. To lower the bridge, we must steal the keys from the guards. Sly can pickpocket guards while sneaking behind them by getting close enough and pressing the circle button. Sly will reach into the pockets and steal their coins with his cane. If a guard's pocket has a glittering gold aura, it indicates that they have a valuable item that you can steal. These items can be held by both small and large guards, but the larger guards will usually have the more valuable ones. These items can be sold for coins on the thief net. These are not the only valuables you can sell. Larger valuables can be found throughout the hub worlds. You must return to the safe house without taking any damage when you pick up these items. Some will also have timers, so you must arrive before the timer runs out. These items are extremely valuable and there are only a limited number of them available per episode. Selling items on the thief net is by far the most effective way to amass a large number of coins. After being denied entry into the ballroom due to a lack of formal dress wear, we proceed to the guest's house, where we must search every room for a tuxedo. The fluid controls and animation give Sly weight while keeping him light on his feet. He can land softly from any height and change his trajectory while in midair. When sneaking around, you can control how slowly Sly steps by moving the analog stick in a specific direction. When approaching an enemy, he will lean low to the ground and take small light steps as he gets closer and closer to the enemy. This was present in the first game as well, but has been vastly improved here thanks to the new movement controls and animations. We arrive at the ball dressed to the nines. Sly has decided to create a distraction by dancing, but first we must find a dance partner. Sly emerges onto the dance floor and approaches Neela, who sees past his disguise. He requests a dance, which he graciously accepts. First, a set of buttons will appear on the screen. When prompted, press the same buttons at their appropriate times to create a captivating display. This is my favourite Sly minigame of all time. Yes, it's simple, but the way it's presented creates an unforgettable gaming experience. This minigame makes you long for the ability to replay missions. I shit you not. As a kid, I had a save right before this mission, so I could just reload it and play it over and over again. Partway through their dance, Neela asks Sly if he's just using her to get a dance with Carmelita, to which he admits. Thankfully, Neela doesn't mind.
Thank you. It was delightful.
Thank you, Constable Neela. After all, it takes two to tango.
Following Sly and Neela's performance, Carmelita approaches, not recognizing Sly, and Sly offers her a dance for later, which she accepts. With the distraction sorted, Murray uses the turret to bring down Rajan's patrol helicopter. The turret sections in this game have extremely sensitive controls, but I believe this is a problem with the HD collection because I don't remember them being this finicky in the PS2 version. It's almost like the controller is too good for the controls, if that makes any sense.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
It will be easier to move around undetected now that the helicopter is down. The gang then breaks into the palace's control room, so Bentley can hack into the system and take control of the electronic winch. We must protect Bentley from the guards and keep his health from dropping to zero. The first game's Lucky Charm system has been removed and replaced with a health meter. Each character now has a health bar called the Thief meter. Every time you're attacked by an enemy or come into contact with a hazard such as water, fire or electricity, your health is reduced. If you fall into water or another similar hazard, you will lose some of your health and be returned to the last place you touched the ground. If you lose all of your health, you will respawn from a checkpoint, and any jobs you are working on will have to be restarted. Collecting health pickups dropped by defeated enemies or broken objects will replenish the meter. This change in the health system works well with the game's new structure. There are a lot more guards patrolling around, and they're a lot harder to take out, especially if you're playing as Bentley or Sly. Now that everything is in place, it's time to launch Operation Hippo Drop. Bentley uses explosives to destroy the bridge to the guest house, preventing reinforcements and forcing the guards in the ballroom to leave their posts. With the ballroom guards gone to investigate the bridge's destruction, Sly dances with Carmelita.
Miss Fox, I believe you owe me a dance.
About time. I thought you had left.
Just waiting for the perfect moment.
Mari is lowered down by the electric wrench and grabs the clockwork wings while Rajam and the audience are distracted.
Tell me, stranger, what's your name?
Why ruin the moment?
Huh? I don't understand.
Why ruin the moment?
The wings! What happened to the clockwork wings?
What? How? Who could have? What? Cooper!
Carrying the wings, Murray makes his way to the van. Murray is defenseless with his hands full, so Bentley uses his RC chopper to take out the guards. And holy hell, this thing is difficult to control. Because the chopper cannot hover in place, you must always be moving forwards, which means you end up spinning in circles half the time just to keep from flying too far away from Murray. You must drop bombs on the guards. Thankfully, the damage radius is much wider than it appears, so you don't have to be that precise.
Punch it!
After the gang got away with the clockwork wings, Carmelita blew her cover and started making arrests left and right. With his reputation in shambles, Rajan was forced to flee from his own party. He's now in hiding, somewhere deep in the jungle. The gang took a break and headed for Bollywood. It took some doing, but they eventually snuck Murray onto the set of a full-blown Indian musical. Sly was happy the guys got to unwind, but Rajan was still out there, and somehow Sly knew things were about to get tough. It took some detective work, but the gang had managed to track down where Rajan had gone into hiding. Somehow, he managed to transform a long-forgotten temple into the thriving center of his spice operations, and it's there where they'll find him. The jungle, too thick to drive through, forced the three of them to walk the long distance to their target. The gang ran into a few problems along the way, but pushed on, for the temple was more than just Rajan's hideout. It is also home to the Clockwork Heart, a pump so strong and tireless it could increase spice production tenfold. Good for Rajan, but awful for the rest of the world. Hope he's not counting on that heart too much, because tonight it comes home with the Cooper gang.
Oh, I forgot to talk. Can you start the clip over? Sly Cooper and the gang in The Predator Awakes.
Bentley points out that the local spice plants are illegal because if you eat too much, you will go into an uncontrollable rage. Sly advises them to keep it away from Murray.
Keep that stuff away from Murray.
As with the previous episodes, our first job is to conduct some reconnaissance. We sneak into Rajam's spice temple with Sly. As we approach the top level, we notice Rajan, who is carrying half of the Clockwork Heart, a crane keeping the other half suspended, and the entrance to that particular level. In terms of layout of the hub worlds, this is one of my least favourites. Playing as Sly, it is fine, and it's cool to be able to bypass the large section of the guard patrols by running along the treetops. However, moving around as Bentley or Murray is much more difficult. There aren't as many viable options for the two to take without having to avoid the guards. The levels are simply better tailored to Sly. The circle button is used to activate almost all of Sly's abilities.
Remember, Sly, hold down the circle button near the blue stealth auras to perform super sneaky thief moves. Nice job so far, Sly. Just jump and hit the circle button. Sly!
such as running along ropes and climbing poles. This is both a positive and negative process. It's great because it simplifies platforming and makes it relatively easy to chain moves together to parkour through a level. However, it has the disadvantage of occasionally causing you to make an unintentional move, which can lead you to landing on the wrong spires, and they are sometimes beneath you, causing Sly to fall all the way to a lower level, which can be extremely annoying. Though this does not happen very often, the benefits of the system far outweigh the drawbacks. The controls are so intuitive and enjoyable to use that the platforming missions are a joy to complete. I could jump around and explore the hub worlds for hours, and this time there are actual items to be found in the hub areas, such as treasures, but more importantly, clue bottles. The green bottles from the first game return, however instead of being hidden within levels, they can only be found in the hub worlds. There are always 30 clue bottles hidden throughout the episode. They can be collected by any of the characters, but because they are found all over the hub, Sly is the best character to use to find them. They aren't all that well hidden, and most are in plain sight, but there is always those last couple that I seem to miss. You won't be able to find them with the Monocucom this time around, but the bottles will make a distinct sound when you get close to one. In the HD collection, the noise of the clue bottles can be heard from a greater distance than in the PS2 version. If you're still having trouble hearing them, you could always turn down the music. You could also use a guide, I guess, but that's no fun. And it's cheating. The vault is hidden somewhere on the map, possibly in a mission area or another secret area dedicated solely to the safe. The location will be revealed on the Monocucom once you have collected all of the clues. When you approach the safe, you'll be asked to enter the code that Bentley deciphered from the clues. The safes always contain an ability, but the game never explains where these abilities come from. I mean, it makes sense in the first game because they were Thieves Raccoonus pages. Yeah, the game doesn't even try to justify it. The inclusion of the clue bottles is fantastic. I really enjoy searching around the rooftops, alleyways, treetops, and all over to find these things. Yeah, it can be a bit irritating when you can't find the last couple of bottles, but Sly's excellent controls and traversal options makes me not care because I'm just having so much fun parkouring around. For further info gathering, we plant a bug in Rajan's office, like an actual bug. Bentley will be able to detect local sound waves transmitted by the bug's wings. The bug has to be planted without taking damage.
I've been trying to control myself, trying to be professional about this, but at a certain point, I'm just really getting pissed. Just excuse me.
Bentley discovers that Rajan conducts a daily tour of his spice operation. Rajan, according to Bentley's sources, always carries 3 blueprints with him that when read together explain how his operation works. Unfortunately, he does not have the clockwork heart with him. We entice him to eat watermelons, which cause him to fall asleep. We can steal the blueprints while he's sleeping. Sly runs into Neela again, and she's once again eager to assist us. We find a secret entrance by following her through the jungle. Once inside, we can see the crane still holding up half of the clockwork heart. We must rob the 2 guards who are holding the keys. We then turn the crank and take the heart. The gang now knows Rajan's spice operation, but an unintentional consequence of stealing the heart and blueprints is that Rajan has become paranoid and refuses to leave his temple. The gang must devise a method of luring him out. First, we blow up the spice grinder with a dynamite-rigged barrel. The barrel can also be used to hide from guards, who seem to ignore teleporting barrels. According to Bentley's research, tigers dislike water, so we use Rajan's chopper to blow open the dam. Unfortunately, partially flooding was insufficient to lure him out, so the gang have decided to go all out and flood the entire area. Bentley has arranged a trade with a local crime ring in order to obtain a powerful explosive, the giant ruby located on a large elephant statue, in exchange for a cherry bomb 500 for use in the heist. We pick up the ruby and transport it to the rendezvous point, using Murray's superior strength. Murray is now the team's brawn, and his gameplay revolves around kicking butt. The majority of Murray's abilities revolve around the use of his fists or body, such as the thunder flop and the fists of flame. He deals the most damage and is the most effective in a brawl. He can even take out the larger flashlight guards with ease. He is probably the least versatile of the 3, but because he is so powerful, he is much easier to navigate the hub world than Bentley. Even if he can't hide, he can simply beat up the guards. Despite his large girth, he can still jump fairly well and has a nice smooth front flip animation for his double jump. He can't jump as high as Sly, but he still has a really good mid-air control when he is required to do a little platforming. With the bomb in hand, the gang are ready to execute Operation Wet Tiger. Bentley and Murray meet near the tower, Bentley controls the chopper from the tower, whereas Murray must descend into the temple and pull the lever to open the elephant's mouth for Sly. Regrettably, Rajan informs his guards that the temple facade is under attack and directs them to drop hunter-second bombs on Murray. Bentley must use the turret of the chopper to destroy the bombs before they hit Murray. Murray raises the lever and opens the elephant's mouth. When everything is clear, Sly detonates the Cherry Bomb 500 and both he and Murray flee before it explodes. The temple is completely flooded, forcing Rajan to emerge from his hiding place, and he's like, "What the fuck?" As Sly, we have to spire jump on these spikes to reach Rajan to stop him from channeling lightning through his staff. I don't know, he's a tiger. That's just what they do. We make it up to Rajan, but Neela's like,
Sorry.
What are you doing?
She is a demon damned to hell! Excuse me.
Sly is knocked out and we take out Rajan as Murray. Let us now discuss the tiger in the room. Neela is a Bengal tiger, as is Rajan. This is actually a leftover of an earlier script. Neela was originally designed to be Rajan's daughter, though this had to be changed to simplify the story. Once Rajan is defeated, Murray manages to pick up the other half of the Clockwork Heart, but immediately after, the Contessa, Neela and their bodyguards arrive to bust Rajan and the Cooper gang. That's right, Sly and Murray are caught. When I was a kid, this came as quite a surprise to me. This is the first time in the series that we see the gang fail. There was some leading into it with Rajan escaping in the jumble, but now it is made clear that there is a lot smaller margin for error. The gang's and Sly's arrogance gained in the first game has just come back to bite them. Sly, Murray and Carmelita, who Neela claims to be allied with the Cooper gang, are all arrested and imprisoned in the Contessa's Prague-based rehabilitation clinic while Bentley escapes. Though statistically improbable, Bentley had to face the facts. Neela had betrayed them, his teammates were captured and he was all alone. While intellectually inferior, Sly and Murray had always been a rich source of sociological interest. The long walk out of the jungle gave Bentley time to reflect, and with each passing step, his sense of isolation grew. Shockingly, his comrade's absence had a profound emotional effect on him. This was it. This was the true test of friendship. Upon reaching the van, Bentley's resolve was hardened. He had to save his friends, but first things first, he had to learn how to drive a stick shift. It took a sleepless week of data crunching, but Bentley eventually tracked down the location of his friends, locked away in the mysterious towers of Prague. At the moment, they are the unwilling guests of the Interpol's most renowned prison warden, the Contessa. While still a criminal psychology student, she entered into a whirlwind romance and married a wealthy aristocrat. Sadly, the union was short-lived, as the general suspiciously died a few weeks after the ceremony. The widowed Contessa put her education and newly acquired estate to work by opening a criminal rehabilitation centre. Her pioneering use of hypnotherapy has produced some good results and subsequently earned her a prominent position within Interpol. Sly and Murray are locked up somewhere in the clinic and are slated for the Contessa's Good Samaritan brainwashing. If Bentley doesn't bust them out soon, they'll be working a 9-to-5 job selling shoes, and he'd be out two best friends.
Bentley saves the gang in Jailbreak.
Jailbreak is probably the most memorable point in the game. The gang is at its lowest point we have ever seen it, and the design of this episode really reflects that. A thief's worst nightmare is being locked up, and this is exactly what this place is, a nightmare, but in a good way. The gothic theme of Prague creates a very intimidating environment, especially since all you have is the game's weakest combat character and possibly the most intimidating area. Bentley has a very distinct skill set in Sly 2. He's still the brains of the operation, making the plans for each job, but there will be times where he must enter the field himself. Bentley carries a crossbow and bombs. His crossbow shoots darts from a first-person perspective. The default darts can be used to put guards to sleep before dropping a bomb on them. This method is extremely slow and doesn't work well if the guards have already been alerted. Bentley is the gang's least physical capable member. As a result, he can take the fewest hits from enemies and deal the least amount of damage with his standard attacks. If a guard spots you, you're much better off running away and hiding. Bentley's sleek dark feathers vibrate near sounds, allowing him to hear whatever the Contessa says from his perch atop the roof. We learn that the claw gang is unraveling due to the disruption of spice shipments. The Contessa has been hypnotizing the inmates into revealing the location of their loot. She has already begun the process with Murray, but Sly's rebellious mind is proving much more difficult to crack. Sly is imprisoned in the high security hole, but the prison's high walls are nearly impenetrable unless you are a train. All we have to do is reverse the polarity of the train tracks, transforming the train into a massive projectile. Smashing it into the prison wall will almost certainly create a large enough hole for Sly to escape through. Bentley has a knack for hacking. A few jobs will require him to hack into computer systems, and these segments will be played out as twin stick shooters. The goal is to get to the docking gate at the end of the level while avoiding enemies and other obstacles. I'm not a fan of these sequences as the gameplay and visuals are a bit too basic, and you usually have to do a few of them in a row, and they just drag on for a little bit too long. They control well, but I don't like them. With an escape route prepared for Sly, we retake control of the RC chopper and destroy the prison wall's security. Sly makes his escape when the coast is clear.
Thanks for busting me out.
Oh, well, you know the old saying, if you can't count on a friend to bust you out of jail, what kind of a friend are they?
Truer words were never said, wizard.
It's fantastic playing as Sly again, and it really makes you appreciate the skills he brings to the team. It makes you feel the same relief that Bentley feels. All that remains is to find a way to free Murray. We eventually find Murray's cell after some sleuthing around the area. Sly gains access to his cell by sneaking in through the vents. Apparently the Contessa has been forcing Murray to eat spice, which is presumably used to aid the hypnosis. Where Murray is being held is too fortified, so Sly encourages Murray to get into a fight so he will be sent to solitary confinement. We'll need to hijack one of the Contessa's tanks to get both Sly and Murray inside the prison walls unnoticed. She keeps the keys on her person, so we must be extremely cautious not to be caught by the Contessa or her bodyguards. After swiping the keys, we are now ready to begin Operation Trojan Tank. As Bentley drives the tank into the prison, Sly hides beneath the tank and crawls beneath it. Sly enters after blowing open the doors, and Bentley soon follows. After overcoming a few guards and obstacles, the pair arrives at Murray's cell. Murray's agitated state has been increased by the spices he's been fed, as well as the hypno boxes scattered throughout the cell block. Murray becomes enraged and bursts through the cell door. Since the hypno boxes are too sturdy for Sly's cane, we must lure Murray into each one to smash them into pieces. Murray snaps out of his spice rage once they're all destroyed. The Contessa then arrives at the gate and discovers that Murray has been freed. Murray shows Sly and Bentley that he still has the other half of the clockwork heart, saying it was hard to hide it from them. When Murray notices the Contessa fleeing, he raises the crank bars to open the gate. The three of them then pursue her along the prison walls. The Contessa is highly intelligent and manipulative, and honestly kind of scary. She is able to trick Interpol into sending her criminals who she then steals from. Unfortunately, the Contessa manages to escape on her getaway blimp.
You dishonorable, cowardly pieces of garbage. I apologize. We have a family audience. That was wrong, and I won't do it again.
Ah! She's getting away!
Don't worry, pal. We'll find her. With the three of us back together, she doesn't stand a chance.
It was great. The gang had been reunited, and it was all because of Bentley. Even the van ride out of town was like a party. Murray had to pull over twice because he was laughing so hard. But despite the jokes, something had changed. Since childhood, the three of them had never been apart, and the recent isolation gave them all pause for thought. Needless to say, they took a few weeks off before getting back to work, and for the first time in Bentley's life, Murray let him drive. Time for a little payback. The Contessa, having escaped, is now hiding out in her castle estate. It's a well-fortified gothic nightmare that would make any thief run in terror. Terrible or not, that's where the gang is headed. To sweeten the deal, they've learned that the Contessa, who until recently was a secret member of the Claw Gang, is in possession of the clockwork eyes. The Thieves Raccoonus describes the eyes stopping opponents dead in their tracks, transfixed in their gaze. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what an accomplished hypnotist could do with such powerful artifacts. News of the Contessa's corruption has spread to Interpol. Constable Neela, being closest to the case, was granted a cash allowance to hire an army of local mercenaries. It looks like the gang is walking into a full-scale war, but they have to act now before things go from bad to worse.
Sly Cooper and the gang in A Tangled Web. How's that?
This hub is essentially split into two. On one side there's Neela and her tank army, and on the other there's the Contessa and her henchmen. We start off by scouting out the area around the safe house, where there are several indestructible tanks. This makes travelling through the area especially difficult. Fortunately, there is a boat that can safely ferry the gang across the river. The Contessa's estate is located on the other side of the river. It's a massive Gothic-style castle teeming with thugs. The Contessa has also deployed tanks to defend against Neela, resulting in a bit of a stalemate. We ascend to the Contessa's re-education tower. We have to climb higher to reach a window that leads inside because the front door is locked. Inside we find Carmelita Fox restrained by the Contessa, who is slowly brainwashing her with the clockwork eyes. By brainwashing Carmelita into an obedient slave, the Contessa intends to have her take the fall for her at Interpol. Sly is adamant about saving her. After all, the gang are the reason she is in this situation in the first place. This episode, I suppose, could be classified as the horror episode. Actually, supernatural would be a better description. There are ghosts, crypts with werewolves, and bad mojo. This episode acts as a sort of parallel to the vicious voodoo episode in Sly 1, where the gang had an encounter with the supernatural. We're going to use ghosts to scare Neela so that the gang can capitalise on the conflict between her and the Contessa, with Neela believing it was the Contessa who sent them. As Sly, we enter a nearby crypt to disrupt the evil wolf priestess tomb. We freed a handful of ghosts who were trapped inside. To capture ghosts, we must photograph them with a binoculocom. The use of photographs to capture ghosts is a common theme in video games. Spirit photography has its origins in the 19th century. Many photographers experimented with new effects such as stereoscopic images and double exposure during the 1850s and 1860s. Obviously, they weren't actually photographing ghosts, but I believe this is where the motif originated. Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there. It's got nothing to do with Sly. Well, it has a little bit to do with Sly. We take all the ghosts to Neela's headquarters and release them down the chimney. Neela, as expected, is terrified and is forced outside, believing it to be the work of the Contessa. She begins making plans to attack her with some extra firepower. As we soar up in the re-education tower, the clockwork eyes are attached to the mind shuffler to amplify its effects. Bentley enters a crypt and discovers a bad mojo collector, a semi-magical device that absorbs bad mojo. We need to use this to collect the mojo that falls from the ceiling spouts. A full tank of bad mojo should be sufficient to destroy the mind shuffler. Going through these crypts is where the camera becomes an issue. It always gets stuck in the doorway. Bentley gets so far away from the camera that it's difficult to see the obstacles you have to jump over. This is made even worse by Bentley's return to the crypts to hack into the old terminal that will allow us to free Carmelita. He is carrying a battery on his back because there's no power in the crypts. We can't take any damage during this segment or the battery will explode. This camera issue happens in a few other areas, but it is most pronounced here. Given that many of the areas are quite open and the camera has plenty of room to move around, it is usually pretty reliable. The graphics have improved slightly and the character models are higher quality and more detailed. This is mostly evident with Bentley and Murray's redesigned models. Sly has also changed slightly. Instead of a backpack, he now wears a red leg bag thing on his leg. But it's the use of colour and lighting that elevates these graphics above the first game. The models' colours are more vibrant, allowing them to stand out from the background. The lighting really sets the atmosphere of each episode. Because the majority of them take place at night, they avoid the issue of everything looking dull and dark by placing subtle light sources around the stages. The architecture is somewhat exaggerated. There are no straight up and down buildings, only skewed proportions. Each environment is detailed and immersive, and each presents its own set of challenges and opportunities for stealth and exploration. For example, avoiding guards by using pipes and ledges in the city, or treetops in the jungle. I also appreciate a lot of the small background details that the designers included. For instance, having places for the guards to sit, or tables with spices on them. Just a lot of little things like that. which many people probably wouldn't even notice, but makes the worlds really feel lived in. The gang finishes up a few more jobs around the Contessa's estate. Murray infiltrates the castle and abducts General Clawfoot. He returns him to the safe house for questioning. Bentley believes he can compel him to reveal the castle gate security codes.
Talk, you scoundrel!
Sly then steals a voice modulator and wiretap and hides them beneath Neela's headquarters, allowing Bentley to issue orders to Neela's mercenaries. Murray, meanwhile, hotwires one of the Contessa's tanks. We need to take out 6 of Neela's tanks, and boy is this thing a pain in the ass to drive. The left analog stick controls the tank's left side, while the right analog stick controls the tank's right side. To go straight, you must simultaneously press up on both analog sticks. Now that part is simple. The hard part is when you need to turn. So if you want to turn right, you have to use the left stick and vice versa. Or is it the opposite? I'm getting confused just trying to explain it. But just take my word for it. It is finicky as hell. Anyway, now that all the jobs have been completed, the gang is ready to save Carmelita, steal the Clockwork Eyes, stop the Contessa, and finally put an end to all of the confusion. It's time for Operation High Road to begin. Murray starts by using the codes provided by General Clawfoot to turn off the spotlights on the main bridge. Bentley then orders Neela's forces to attack the castle, while he and Sly go inside to free Carmelita. Bentley hacks the terminal, allowing her to pursue the Contessa. They blow the Clockwork Eyes off the mine shuffler. Neela appears and steals one of the eyes. Sly chases after her, while Bentley escapes on the blimp with the other one. Following Sly's pursuit of Neela and the capture of the eye, it is now Bentley's turn to clear the skies of Neela's bombers. He heads for the rendezvous, but Carmelita, who is still chasing the Contessa, shoots down the blimp, causing it to crash into the side of a wall.
That eye belongs to me, and I want it back.
No way. You think I'm crazy? Actually, on second thought, don't answer that. I really don't want your professional opinion.
Not crazy, just stupid. You're an ignorant child playing dress-up in his father's legacy. Oh, I know all about you and the Cooper clan.
Then you'll understand why this eye needs to be destroyed.
Short-sighted fool! I've no interest in your narrow interpretation of morality. I'm above all that. Above good and evil.
And you think I'd give the eye to someone that's above morality?
The Contessa is only concerned with her own desires and considers it foolish for anyone to do otherwise. She has no quarrels about her corruption. She is kind of a psychopath and can also spawn spiders. Are these her children? Are we killing babies?
Children.
Despite the fact that we beat the crap out of her, she manages to catch Sly off guard and grab the eye. Carmelita steals Bentley's eye as well and attempts to flee in one of the Contessa's tanks.
How's this thing work? What's this do? And this?
So as Murray, we must shoot down her tank and steal the eye before she flees. Of course I failed this a few times because I can't drive this thing for shit. Sly catches up to the Contessa and we must fight her again, but we must also avoid her hypnosis this time. If she hits you with it, the controls are reversed and the screen becomes distorted. I absolutely adore this animation. Sly reclaims the Clockwork Eye once she is defeated. Things hadn't gone exactly to plan, but the Contessa was beaten and the Clockwork Eyes were finally in the gang's hands. The Contessa was arrested and brought to trial for the crime she had committed while working for Interpol. Their PR damage control went one step further by promoting Neela, the hero of Prague, to the rank of captain. Carmelita, still on the outs with Interpol, had to run with the rest of the gang. To his surprise and internal delight, Sly got to help his favourite policewoman escape from the cops. Sly tried to put it all out of his mind. This claw business was spiralling out of control, and Sly knew that his gang was at the centre of it. They'd be back in action soon enough, but for now, well, they just had to lay low for a while. Following the trail of spice shipments to Nunavut Bay, Canada, the secret hub of John Bichon's shipping empire. As a young man, he trekked across Canada to strike it rich during the gold rush of 1852. An avid prospector, he took some chances and ended up buried alive in an avalanche. Miraculously, the quick freeze kept him alive, and 120 years later, thanks to global warming, he thawed out. A product of his time, he dreams of taming the wild north, damming every river and chopping down all the trees with progress delivered at the sharp end of an axe. Shipping spices for the claw game proved to be a lucrative way to bankroll his one-man war against nature, and yet, Sly can't help but feel a little sorry for the guy. He's just a normal guy from the 1850s. Back in his day, he'd be a hero, but today, he's a villain. Either way, that man's got more than his fair share of clockwork parts. What a low-tech guy like Jean Bisson is doing with robot parts is a mystery.
Sly Cooper and the gang in He Who Tames the Iron Horse.
Before Jean Bisson established his train empire in the area, Nunavut Bay was a popular destination for rock climbers. This hub world has a lot of open space, but there are trains that can help you get around. The reconnaissance missions leads us to a cabin out in the wilderness. Bisson is on the phone with Arpeggio, another Claw Gang member. While taking photos of Bisson's train routes and eavesdropping on the conversation, we learn that Bisson has put 3 of his clockwork parts into the engines of 3 of his trains, which he calls the Iron Horses. The clockwork lungs and stomach facilitate the trains in running endlessly. In addition, he has hidden the blueprints for each Iron Horse in 3 different cabins. Taking all of the blueprints, the gang begins collecting clockwork parts from the Iron Horses. Unfortunately, while doing so, Mari is captured by Carmelita, who is attempting to clear her name by apprehending the gang. To free Mari, we need to steal 3 keys from her. Carmelita acts as a special flashlight guard in this level. Her patrol route is much larger than that of other flashlight guards. She is also less accurate with her shots, though she will hunt for Sly more persistently and can high jump to catch Sly at higher elevations. Aside from Carmelita, you will frequently encounter 2 types of guards, flashlight guards and non-flashlight guards. That's the best name I could come up with. The flashlight guards are a large enemy who uses a flashlight to spot you. They all have a projectile weapon, the most common of which is a firearm. The flashlight guards patrol at ground level and take multiple hits to be killed. If you hit them before they are detected, they will be knocked out for a few seconds. They can still be stealth killed at this point. They are knocked back when hit otherwise, but will immediately kick and fire their weapon in retaliation. The kick attack is avoidable, but the projectile attack is deadly accurate and will always hit you if you are within the ray of the guard's flashlight. At very close range, they will use a melee attack instead. They will instantly detect you if you step into the light, so the best way to deal with them as Sly is to sneak up behind them, and as Bentley, you're better off just avoiding them or putting them to sleep. The Murray doesn't need to be as cautious, as he has no issue taking them out with his fists. The non-flashlight guards do not carry flashlights. I know, shocking. They have a wider field of vision and can be more difficult to avoid because there is no clear line between what they can and cannot see. These guards are usually stationed on higher ground, such as rooftops. Many rooftop guards, like flashlight guards, kick back in retaliation after being hit and can also use projectiles. Some even carry bullhorns to warn other enemies around them. If you go somewhere that a rooftop guard cannot, the guard will throw small stones at you, inflicting minor damage. These guards are smaller and weaker than the flashlight guards, making them easier to defeat. This is good because these guards are far more mobile and are more likely to spot you while leaping through the levels as Sly. There is one more type of enemy, and that is animals. While every character in the game is an anthropomorphic animal, there are a few that are just animals. Yes, this may appear to be inconsistent with the world building, but the way they are designed and act, there's a very clear distinction between animals that are people and animals that are just animals, if that makes sense. Murray takes advantage of the local wildlife by luring the mother bear into smashing open the cage that houses the handcar. Meanwhile, Sly and Bentley board 2 different trains, jumping and dodging past all of the security to obtain the clockwork's left and right lung. All that remains is to mount the 3rd Iron Horse and seize the clockwork's stomach. It's time to execute Operation Choo Choo. The Cooper gang boards the unlocked handcar and use it to catch up with Iron Horse number 3. As Sly, we enter through the caboose and proceed through the interior, while Bentley and Murray remain in the handcar. After making his way past several guards, we reach the train car where Bichon himself is. We manage to slip by, but then Neela appears in her new plane. Neela challenges Sly to a fight, but Bentley saves the day with his RC chopper.
We're gonna beat your ass! You just get that through your stinking traitorous heads! Excuse me, I apologize. We have a lot of Christian affiliates. I am a Christian.
This section is similar to a shmup, but far less hectic, thank God. I'm honestly not a fan of any of the RC Chopper minigames. They are better integrated into the missions of the game than in the first, but I would still prefer more platforming segments because they're just so much more enjoyable. Bentley is able to severely damage Neil's aircraft, causing her to flee. Sly makes his way to the engine where the clockwork summit has been bolted into place. Neil interrupts Bentley as he prepares to drop a bomb down the smokestack to crack the engine block. Bentley destroys Neela's aircraft in a final battle, and she spirals out of control. Bentley proceeds to blast the stomach free, allowing Sly to steal it.
I've got an upset stomach on my hands, but other than that, I feel great.
The gang had pulled off the impossible. They had successfully robbed all of John Bichon's Iron Horse trains and were walking away with count them, three clockwork parts. And as a bonus, they shut down the spice distribution in all of North America. Needless to say, they were pretty pleased with themselves. Can't say the same for Carmelita. Once again, the framed policewoman had to run from the cops, which was fun at first, but Sly was starting to feel a little sorry for her. What if they replaced Carmelita with someone else? Sly didn't want another cop on his tail. She's a big part of why this is all fun. Sooner or later, Sly's gonna have to figure out a way to clear her name, some way other than turning himself in. Things just weren't right up in Canada. Random acts of violence were popping up like weeds, and the Northern Lights, they just weren't right. One night they'd be brighter than ever, and the next gone. In Nunavut Bay, Sly overheard talk between John Bison and his mysterious partner Arpeggio. Somehow, those two are behind it all. Tracking the source of the disturbance was easy. By simply following the lights, the gang were led north to an immense lumber camp. The sheer number of fallen trees advertised John Bison's presence, and that he was in possession of the clockwork talons. The thievius raccoonist makes numerous references to the talons slicing through plates of steel. A skilled lumberjack like Bison can clear a forest in hours while wielding the artifacts. Those talons have got to go, both to finally do away with clockwork and to save the environment from his twisted sense of progress. The world just doesn't need to make space for another strip mall.
Sly Cooper and the gang in Menace from the North, eh?
As they have just arrived at John Bison's lumber camp, Bentley has Sly take recon photos of the area. Aside from being beautiful, Arpeggio has discovered that the Northern Lights are a plentiful source of light waves and has tasked John Bison with gathering energy from the lights. Bison is using the lighthouse located at his lumber camp as an attractor of the Northern Lights energy. The collected energy is stored in massive batteries before being shipped to Arpeggio. It's unclear what he's doing with these light waves, but the gang knows they have to stop him. Sly listens to John Bison talking to himself after taking the photos. Bison is in need of participants for his lumberjack games and plans to post the clockwork talons as a trophy to attract competition. The Cooper gang decides to join the games. During this episode, I had the most glitchiest playthrough of Sly 2 I have ever had. I rarely have any problems while playing any of the Sly games, but for whatever reason, this episode just wasn't having it. The game crashed while Sly was attempting to steal transmitters from the bear's mouth in order to bug John Bison's house.
Only you could have pulled that off. Head outside and I'll fill you in on the next step.
There was a glitch a few times where I couldn't interact with anything until I reloaded. Another major bug was that when I switched to Murray, I was teleported to a mission across the map as soon as I exited the safe house. The cutscene played with a weird sound in the background, and then the screen just went white.
You might even try throwing fish at the guards. Might improve their odor.
A meeting of the RC Combat Club is currently taking place. Murray must win the competition while dressed as a moose in order to learn the location of the Northern Light Battery. When you really think about it, this mission is kind of morbid. So Sly gets Murray a moose head to wear to trick the guards, and not like a moose head as in like a mask, like an actual moose head. This will be an analogue to me wearing someone else's head to fool you into thinking I was that person. The RC tank is extremely difficult to control. Because the controls are oriented to Murray's position rather than the camera, turning is extremely difficult. What is it about tanks in this game that makes them impossible to drive? By winning, we discover that the silo is actually a battery, and Arpeggio is on his way to pick it up. So the gang has decided to drain the battery in order to hitch a ride to Arpeggio's headquarters. Sly and Murray must aid Bentley in draining the Northern Light battery by attaching grappling hooks from each of the 3 local boats. Sly 2 is a lot more focused on teamwork between the 3 gang members. This shift in focus can even be seen in the episode title screens, with it saying Sly Cooper and the gang rather than just Sly Cooper. Each member has their own strengths and weaknesses, and Sly 1, the Cooper gang didn't really feel too much like a gang, as Sly was doing most of the work, with Murray being the most useless. While Sly still has the most missions, the game is much more balanced, and all 3 gang members are used appropriately. The final phase of an episode always has Sly and the gang going on one mission together. They will sometimes split up, and the game automatically switches from character to character as each goal is completed, allowing the entire heist to flow smoothly. It's a shame it's not used more frequently. The dynamic of the trio feels very natural, and it's enjoyable to watch them all work and interact with one another. With the battery drained, the gang must now shift their focus to winning the talons in the Lumberjack games. For instance, they go and steal an eagle egg that will be useful in the heist. Operation Canada Games is one of the gang's most improvised heists, and their desperation is palpable throughout, as they employ some extremely risky tactics in pursuit of the Clockwork Talons. Murray competes in the first event, a power chopping competition. The judges award him 3 tens for chopping the log. Bentley sneaks up to Bichon during his turn and places the eagle egg in his pocket, dodging angry eagles along the way. The eagles attack him after he places the egg in Bichon's pocket, resulting in 3 zeros from the judges. Threatening them, the judges give him 3 tens.
What? I think you better rethink them scores, boys. What you intended to give me was perfect 10s, right?
The second contest is an ice wall climbing competition. Sly takes his position and climbs the wall within the time limit, using wall hooks and the climbing canes, earning 3 tens. Murray fires 3 grappling hooks at Bichon as he climbs, pulling him off the wall. He receives 3 zeros yet again and threatens the guards once more, changing their scores to 10s. The log spin is the final event. Bentley jumps from log to log as they drop below the surface of the water, earning another perfect score. Because of the frightened judges, the gang realizes that they have no chance of winning, so they lure them into a dark cave and take all of their clothes. The disguised gang members take their place at the table and give Bichon 3 zeros, but Bichon realizes that they aren't the judges he hired.
What? I thought I warned you judges about the consequences for incorrect scores. Wait a second. You aren't the judges I hired. It's the scrawny raccoon and his annoying friends. Well, if you want the talons, then why don't you just take them?
The gang wake up in the sawmill control room. Bentley suspects John Bichon has locked them there for later interrogation. There is a pipe sticking out of the wall which Bentley manages to squeeze through. Dropping down, he is confronted by Bichon, who explains that he has already raided their safe house and taken the clockwork parts. Not only that, but he sold them all to Arpeggio, including the talons.
You sold all the clockwork parts? Arpeggio has them all?
I wouldn't expect one of your kind to understand the finer points of commerce. You turtles are too stupid to know a woodcutter from a woodchuck.
I will stomp your head in if you start a fight with me, you thug scum! Anyways, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen.
This boss fight is very unique. Of course, Bentley has no chance against John Bichon if he confronts him directly, but with Sly in the control room, we can tell him when to activate the equipment to damage Bichon. The main thing to worry about during this fight is to not to accidentally hurt yourself.
Go!
Tarnation! I've been done in by some four-eyed turtle? Times have changed.
After beating Bichon, Sly and Murray then free themselves and meet up with Bentley on the ground floor.
Good job, little buddy. That was some fast thinking.
One of Bichon's men then announced over the intercom that Arpeggio's blimp would arrive in exactly 1 minute. The gang couldn't miss the blimp as they were determined to reclaim their clockwork parts. The silo battery was not that far, so with no time to lose, they went outside and made a run for the silo. The blimp arrived within seconds of them stowing away inside. As they shut themselves into the Northern Light battery, it became black. For a few long minutes they just sat there, in darkness. No one dared to talk, for fear that John Bisson's men might discover where they were hiding. Time seemed to have stopped, and then they felt it. They were being lifted up to Arpeggio's blimp. It was also strange. The focus of all of their schemes had been stolen from them. The clockwork parts were gone. Looking around the inside of the battery, Sly knew they all felt it. Failure. Sly was twitchy and ready for action. Any action. Bentley tried to make some sense of the situation by drawing up meaningless plans. But Murray took it the worst. He just sat there sobbing while the team van floated away over the horizon. That van was his life. Sly knew he would have to find a way to make it up to him. There they were, heading east across the Atlantic Ocean, stowaways on a giant airborne fortress. Though time was short, the gang made sure to study up on our unknowing host, Arpeggio. While attending a prestigious boarding school, the young Arpeggio excelled at all subjects, but he never managed to keep up with the other boys physically. Sadly, his wings, due to their small size, were useless for flight. Furious at his feeble body, he focused his powerful mind to search for a cure in the works of the Italian Renaissance masters. Their notebooks provided the springboard for the sinister young genius, and it wasn't long before the Claw Gang took him on as chief inventor. His talents must have been at work repurposing all the clockwork parts for their criminal schemes, and now this mastermind was in possession of all the parts. It's only a matter of time before he puts them back together, and when that happens, well, the gang is not going to let that happen.
Sly Cooper and the gang in Anatomy for Disaster.
As the final episode begins, the gang is in a very desperate situation. Everything we've worked for throughout the game has been lost. The blimp consists of numerous large rotators, turning metal fans and cranks, balloons and wood wings, and radio communication towers. While I like the idea behind this hub world, it is my least favourite in the game. There are searchlights all over the place, and the large rotating fans divide large sections of the level. As a result, there's a lot of waiting just to get across them. The level just doesn't have the same sense of flow as the other hub worlds. It's just not fun to move around as Bentley or Murray, but there are some optional power-ups that can help them get around. Power-ups, also known as gadgets, are a type of equipment that can be brought through the thief net, aside from the ones you obtain by opening the secret bottle safes. As you progress through the game, more and more power-ups become available. The majority of them are optional, but a few are required for certain missions. But don't worry too much about this, as the game will tell you what power-up is needed, and it's usually not very expensive. Power-ups can be equipped from the select menu, and you can equip up to 3 at once. They can be assigned to any of the trigger buttons except R1, which is reserved for sprinting. You know that brown section below the health meter? Yeah, well that's the gadget meter. I have no idea why they went with a muted brown colour, as it quite literally looks like shit. When a power-up is used, some of the meter is consumed. Each power-up uses a different amount, and it's not always clear how much until you use it. It's not a huge deal, but it does make the meter feel a bit arbitrary. The gadget meter, like the health meter, can be refilled by collecting health pickups. Each character has their own set of power-ups that they can use, based on their skill set. Sly gains more stealth and acrobatic power-ups, while Bentley gains a variety of explosives, and Murray's focus on powerful melee attacks. The power-ups are unquestionably more useful than those in the previous game, particularly the paraglider and the silent obliterator. Of course there are some that I never used, but there is some overlap with some of the power-ups, as in the alarm clock and music box. When thrown, the alarm clock will attract guards to an area, and the music box will do the same, except the guards will fall asleep, which isn't much of a benefit because you can just sneak around them or take them out either way. Murray's power-ups are probably the most underwhelming. Most of them are simply stronger attacks, but he is already so good at fighting that they don't really feel like they add much, and I frequently forget to use them. The most useful power-ups for Bentley and Murray are the ones that improve their mobility, as that is their biggest weakness when traversing the levels. As Sly, we climb to the smaller blimp floating alongside the massive flying fortress. Bentley has detected strong magnetic fields emitting from the blimp. He's concluded that if Arpeggio has already begun reconstructing clockwork, that's where he'll That's where he'll be. That's hard to say. We need to take some recon photos inside, but while we're doing so, we notice Neela talking to Arpeggio.
I can't believe it! She must have been working with Arpeggio all along!
You dishonorable, cowardly pieces of garbage! Excuse me.
Even as a kid, I wasn't surprised by this. Sly tries to halt the construction of Clockwork by reversing the polarity of the magnetic inducers that hold it together. Unfortunately, this backfires and locks Clockwork's parts into place.
Shit.
Sly reveals himself after Neela and Arpeggio come out to investigate the crash, and then Arpeggio explains his entire plan. Yes, he begins monologuing. After the forming of the Claw Gang, Arpeggio had each individual member contribute a significant factor for a spice operation. Spice, yes, spices. Rajam grew spices in India, Jean Besson transported them, and Dimitri distributed them to the Parisians via his nightclub. Okay, they're spice dealers, you see? The spice, however, was only a small part of the mastermind's plan. The Contessa used her hypnosis specialties to devise a way to command people through flashing lights. Arpeggio's blimp used northern light energy collected by Bouchon to transmit those frequencies. Parisians were susceptible to the hypnotic light effects of Arpeggio's blimp due to their spice consumption. This entire scheme was geared towards Arpeggio's Clockwork plot, with Neela directing Sly and the gang to steal Clockwork parts from the rest of the Claw Gang. He then loaded all of the parts onto his aircraft and stored them in his blimp's headquarters. Arpeggio desires to merge with Clockwork's body. The hypnotic light show will command the spice-consuming citizens of Paris and put them in a state of immense hatred, fueling the Clockwork parts and Arpeggio's life, making him immortal. Yes, he explains everything to Sly in an overly long cutscene. To be honest, the cutscenes are a little boring. The character acting is acceptable, with the majority of the animations limited to those seen during gameplay, and the rest consisting of simple gestures and talking animations. Many of the cutscenes are actually between characters using the Binocucom. They are essentially just talking heads, and they look fine, except sometimes Sly's hat freaks out. The lip syncing is good, but the voice acting is what really sells the characters' interactions. It's fantastic. Kevin Miller is an excellent choice for the role of Sly, and I couldn't imagine anyone else in the role. The voice actress for Neela is the weakest link in the cast. She's not bad, but her accent is inconsistent. She also voices Carmelita Fox, which in Sly 2 is my favourite incarnation of the character. If you didn't know, Carmelita Fox has a different voice actress in each game, for whatever reason. I don't know, but this game is the best one in my opinion. Once Arpeggio finished revealing his master plan to Sly, he ordered Neela to hold Sly down while he began to enter the Clockwork frame.
Stupid Arpeggio. I double-crossed the Cooper gang, Interpol, and Carmelita. What made you think I wouldn't do the same to you?
This is preposterous! You're my protege, not the next candidate for my immortality. I demand you exit the Clockwork frame or...
Behold, Clockla is born!
Clockla. I hate that name. 0 out of 10. One cool thing about this stage, that as you move around it completing jobs, you can actually see Clockla, flying around. To prevent the light show over Paris, the gang must enter the engine room and turn off the lights. The trusty barrel will make its final appearance on this job. Farewell, my woody friend, you'll be missed, but not that much. With the engine turned off, the gang still needs to find a way to get rid of the robotic bird. So they make a truce with Carmelita Fox, who has acquired a chopper. For her to be able to pinpoint the location of the blimp, Sly must use the Mega Jump Pack to transmit the blimp's location. This mission is fantastic. The Mega Jump is so much fun, and you can even unlock it after 100%ing the game. Carmelita takes Sly on board the chopper once she reaches the blimp so we can shoot down Clockla before she reaches Paris. You're in for it now, Clockla. That's what you get for having a bad, shitty name. The fact that the final boss is essentially a turret section, really sucks. It's just not the game's strength. Yes, it is a callback to the final fight of the first game, but I didn't like it there either. Clockla. It's getting worse. Clockla collides with the blimp's rotating fans after becoming severely damaged, causing the blimp to burst into flames. Clockler then becomes upset and takes it out on the gang by grabbing the Northern Light battery with Bentley and Murray inside and flying away with it. Sly lands on top of Clockler using the paraglider and proceeds to smash the bird in the face, causing her to plummet into the lake below. The gang reunites to celebrate Clockler's apparent defeat, but they are cut off when she immediately powers up again.
I hate you, Cooper Gang! I will find you in your sleep and I will destroy you! You will never know a moment's peace for the rest of your short, miserable lives! The Clockler will know revenge! I am revenge! I am the Alpha and the Omega! Clockler!
Clockler. Bentley noted that Clockler had mentioned a hate ship, and that this could possibly be the source of her power. Murray opens up the bird's beak and Bentley pulls out the hate chip. With her source of power gone, the head of Clockler falls on top of Bentley.
Ah! My glasses!
What? Bentley! I'll save you!
Pick me up! I can't walk!
Come on, Sly, let's get out of here!
And there they were, at the end of the road. The Claw Gang had been defeated, and the clockwork parts lay scattered around in heaps. Yet despite the explosion, they remained pristine. It was as if nothing could ever hurt them. Carmelita cursed herself for showing up too late to get a few shots in on Clockler. So she took it out on what was close at hand, the hate chip. And just like that, it was over. Without that core piece, the essential center of clockwork, there was nothing left. The parts aged before everyone's eyes, as if time had finally caught up with the ancient bird. How ironic that Carmelita, a police officer, would be the one to lift the curse of the Cooper family. The menace of clockwork would never again rise to threaten Sly or his children. True to her nature, she informed the gang that they were all under arrest, but one look at his friends told Sly that they were in no shape for a fast getaway. So he offered to go peacefully in exchange for letting his friends walk. They'd taken some bruises through all of this, but Sly was surprised, shocked really, to see them leave their gear behind as they walked away. Their wounds were deeper than he could even imagine. Those guys were hurting. Carmelita's old police unit soon arrived. With Sly in custody, her name was cleared, and she even got a well-deserved promotion. It was the least Sly could do. The ride to HQ started with them sitting in silence, trying to read each other's thoughts. As the reality of his capture started to sink in, she began to relax, and they got to talking. They spoke freely about their previous adventures, comparing notes, and even getting in a few laughs. Then they started talking about, well, everything. Books, music, art. It was like they were on a first date. She even showed Sly the bottle she'd been saving for the special occasion of his arrest. Sly's heart sank when she realized that their short flight across town had already taken 2 hours. A fact Sly had kinda clued into after seeing the Eiffel Tower float by 17 times. She went forward to ask the pilot what was up, and it looked like Sly's pals had left him a little going away present before taking off. The gang seemed to always be on the up and up in the first game, but Sly 2 isn't afraid to have the gang, thus the player, fail. Sly's confidence had reached an all-time high since reclaiming the Thieves Raccoonus, but it had proven to be a weakness several times during the adventure. Sly would not have gotten as far as he did without the help of his friends Bentley and Murray. His friends have made significant sacrifices in order to reclaim and protect Sly's legacy. Sly 2 is a truly unique experience. It's so unexpected that it ends in what could be considered the gang's lowest point, and as a kid I couldn't wait to get my hands on the sequel. This game surpassed all of my expectations. Sly 2 changed a lot from its predecessor, but it kept what made the game great, the charming characters and worlds, as well as the simple yet enjoyable gameplay. This is why Sly 2 remains one of my favourite games of all time.
I'll find you, Cooper! I'll be seeing you soon.